So growing up in Chicago, how do you feel like Chicago influenced your musical career? Do you think it played a part?
Well, twofold. One, Chicago overall is a depressing place to grow up because we spend half our time indoors.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of cold weather, even though I still live in Chicago.
Right.
So I think the gray basement, cold, very similar to the influence that Birmingham had on heavy metal bands. I think it sort of created a ambiance and atmosphere that created, in return, a sort of aspirational music. And as I like to point out, and I've very rarely seen people pick up on it, Adam from Tool and Tom Morello and I literally grew up, within 20 miles or so of each other.
Great.
Grew up listening to the same radio stations.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at Tool's music, if you look at Rage Against the Machine's music, and you listen to the Pumpkins, it's three guys who grew up in very similar atmospheres and took rock music in almost three completely different directions.
Yes.
I think that says a lot about what it meant to grow up in Chicago, both the sort of the industrial sort of grimness of it all, the working class kind of vibes, mixed with aspirational, get me out of here, almost like creating like a dream that's not real, right?
Right.
Secondarily, we were told by everybody, you will not make it out of Chicago. You have no chance. No bands get signed out of Chicago, and if they do, they don't sound like you.
Yeah.
Change the name, move to LA, and go give out flyers on the Sunset Strip or whatever people told us to do.
Right.
And we just resisted that. And I think that the hothouse effect of being in a very small musical community in the 80s allowed us to develop a very interesting language that had very little bearing on what was going on in New York, London, Tokyo, LA. So when we finally went to those places, people were like, who the hell are you?
Yeah,
And we met immediate sort of pushback.
Okay.
We were neither codified or intimidated by the indie rules. Like, you can't do this, you can't do that. Because we just ignored the Chicago version. So the New York version meant even less to us, right?
Yeah.
So when we showed up, in New York circa 1990, people were like, what is this music you're playing? It doesn't really even relate to what's happening in alternative music.
Man.
And we were lucky enough that people responded to it. So it was this weird thing of like getting this kind of negative pushback because we didn't belong to anybody's world. We were really into a world unto ourselves. And to dovetail something else we talked about, once we got that pushback and we were being successful, it drove us even further into our language. We were less likely to adapt to what was around us. We actually shut everybody out and just started making sort of music only for what went on within the band.